when I think about the playoffs, my nipples get hard.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. The preseason, 5-6 days away, I guess, at this current time of me broadcasting this show. So NBA basketball is coming. Media days, nearly all of those are in the book. Obviously, the standard things, we're going to play fast. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm taking threes now. Trying to pass that information and work out what's actually important from it is key when we're looking at our fantasy drafts. There's lots for us to talk about, and I think you guys are going to be coming with those questions on today's show as we do a live mailbag. Michael Bolton is also here, so
let's get to it.
I thought at this point we might have a resolution in the Jimmy Butler trade scenario. That isn't the case yet. Apparently we're looking at tomorrow maybe, but as that deadline Tuesday for Butler to be traded to another team. But some interesting things that have come out in the last day or so. If it's a Zubats, potentially looking at getting some minutes there at center in LA. If he could get 24 minutes a night, he would be a standard league type player. Also revelations that LeBron has apparently admitted to Jay Crowder, of all people. I suppose they played with Cleveland last season, that he is going to be playing a lot of the five this season. Lots of hype about some of the rookies, especially guys like Mitchell Robinson in New York. A lot of praise for John Isaac, and it makes me think that Isaac is going to be starting at small forward for the Magic this season. So there's lots of interesting stuff happening in terms of I guess opinions or things that are going down across the NBA landscape. What I'm going to be doing for the rest of this week, I'm going to have a show tomorrow talking about punting, the strategy of punting, what is punting, how you execute it, and then the day after that we'll be doing a head-to-head mock draft because that sort of ties in with head-to-head leagues and punting. The day after that, to round out this week, I'm going to be having Greg Ehrenberg on. We're going to be doing season win totals, going over/under on the lines on the team win totals for the season. So you guys can tune in and check that out. What else have we got happening in terms of news at the moment? Derek Favors and Andre Drummond, two big men who have come out and said they're going to be looking at taking three-pointers this season. Drummond's one seems really aggressive. Dwayne Casey's coming out and maybe he takes three a game. It's not a huge amount, but it's a pretty decent chunk for a bloke who never took threes before. And I think we need to weigh that up. I think with Drummond this season, you're going to be looking at him as that guy that people are going to take in the second round because of what he did last season. But I think his assist numbers are going to drop with a full season next to Blake Griffin. And if he starts taking threes at that sort of rate, 15, 20% of his shots, and doesn't hit them at a high rate, then his overall field goal percentage will come down. And that's going to have a negative impact on his fantasy value. It could also reduce his offensive rebound ability, which we know he's the best rebounder in the NBA. But if you're taking more threes, and we've seen this happen with Nick Vucevic especially, the more threes that you take, the less rebounds that you get. Same with Blake Griffin, because you're just not there contesting for the offensive rebound as much. So that could impact Drummond's value as well. So I'd be a little bit scared of looking at him as a second-round player. It could also impact his value in points leagues as well, but he's a far superior points league guy than what he is in categories leagues because of that free throw percentage. But it is something to bear in mind that if he is taking more threes, the field goal percentage might drop, and the rebound numbers might drop. So just bear that in mind when thinking about Andre Drummond for this coming season. All right, got some questions coming in now for you guys who are watching this live over on YouTube. Kemp Y, what are your thoughts on Cat and Wiggins with Butler getting the boot? Does it make Wiggins viable in 12 Cat leagues? I assume you mean 12 team leagues. But I'll go with that. And this is a quick PSA, I guess, to people. If you're going to come and tell me I'm in an 11 cat league, I'm in a 13 cat league, I literally have no idea what you mean, because there is a standard 8 categories, there is a standard 9 categories. There is no such thing as a standard 11, a standard 12 cat league. So I don't know what your extra 3 categories are. Are they field goals made, free throws made, shooting percentage, 3-point percentage, offensive rebounds, assist to turnover ratio, team wins, ejections, fouls, technicals? I've got no idea what these extra categories are. So if you are going to ask me a question with, I've got a 12 cat league, I need to know what these categories are. Otherwise, I've got no idea. But for you, Kempy, I'm going to assume that you mean a 12 team league. I think Wiggins was probably fine as a late round pick in a 12-team league anyway, but as I've said many times, guys who suffer big drops in free throw percentage, I put it nearly all squarely mentally and to do with an unhappiness with being on that team. And I think that's what happened to Wiggins. So with Butler gone, I believe that Wiggins' free throw percentage will jump back up into the mid-70s. Now, his ability to get rebounds and assists and steals and blocks, that's never been there through his career. But he could become a 20-point per game scorer again. The efficiency could rise back up. So I do think that Wiggins would have an increased value, and Towns would pretty, I think pretty solidly make himself as that number 3 player. He was the number 3 or 4 guy last year when Butler was out after the All-Star break, because we know how shittily Tom Thibodeau used Towns last season with all these shots, and rightly so. Butler's good, but giving them to Wiggins and Teague, but just taking an extra good player out of that mix means Towns going to be more aggressive offensively. We don't know who'd be coming back, but it's not going to be someone of the caliber of Jimmy Butler would be my guess. So yeah, I think it would solidify Towns at 3, and it also would boost Wiggo up to be maybe a top 100 sort of a guy and a 20-point per game scorer. Let's have a look. K Cardi, because I guess I'm going to save my punting question. When do you draft Simmons and Embiid to start? I'm not really sure what that question means, so I'll get back to you in a sec. Jason Walsh, I picked Pau Gasol with my last pick. Should I drop him for Jakob Poeltl? A 12-team head-to-head Yahoo with no free throw percentage, but we have to play 2 centers. Yeah, look, obviously when you're looking at a last pick, you're looking for upside, and I don't think that Pau Gasol has any upside. Now, he'll still be valuable, he'll still be useful out there at times, but Poeltl, if he gets to 24 minutes, his value goes from, maybe he goes from 150 to 100, whereas Powell is 120 and he goes to 140, maybe he drops down. So I think that Poeltl is probably the better option there as well. Nathan Tan, Wiggins was ranked 119th, I think, the season before Jimmy Butler. And he averaged 23 points per game with nothing else. Let's actually check that out, because I'll double check that ranking for you, because I've got Basketball Monster open in front of me. Let's check what Wiggins' ranking was in that season before Jim Butler arrived. He was the 86th ranked player and the 89th ranked player the year before that. He doesn't do huge amounts in those other categories. He's a strong positive in points, almost a 1.5 standard score there. So that's a real positive. And then, steals is right on average, threes right on average, and below average in the other categories. So he's not great, but getting points, especially getting points late, is very, very difficult. So that's where Wiggins' value is. And I think that he's probably a guy you'd look at about pick 75, and that might seem counterintuitive for all the shit that I give Wiggins, but because finding 23 points per game from a player outside the top 50 is literally almost impossible, that's why Wiggins would jump 10, 15 spots from what his actual ranking might be in that type of scenario. Bryson Jones, my league is a bit elementary. All categories are +1 and turnovers are -1. Yeah, that's not a good point. Like, I don't like points leagues in general. That's not a good points league. It really just means you want scorers, and that's it. Like, you want someone who scores points, and that's really about it. Here we go. Constantine Ion, I don't know. How would your player rankings change for a 14-team league with 11 cats, a standard 9 plus 3-point percentage and triple doubles? Does the 3-point percentage category value or devalue guards? Well, it values good 3-point shooters. That's really, in triple doubles, I just ignore that category completely. 3-point percentage, it could be Karl Anthony Towns gets a boost because he's a 40% 3-point shooter. Some guards like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, they're 40% 3-point shooters. Some of them aren't. Some of them are shit 3-point shooters. So really, it doesn't have, the 3-point percentage value gets spread across multiple player types. And for reference, if I add 3-point percentage to rankings, what it does, it changes things significantly. It puts Steph Curry up to number 1. That's because of that percentage, and it's such a big standard score in that category. We're talking about him being a 3.5 Z score there, so he jumps up significantly. Kevin Love becomes a first-round player, as does Kyrie and Paul George. Giannis drops, Jimmy Butler drops, Kyle Lowry jumps up, Westbrook drops, Devin Booker goes forward. But someone like Ben Simmons, who doesn't take any threes, well, it doesn't really change his value, because if you're not taking any threes, it means you're either not hitting them or not missing them, so you get a 0 in that category, so you're bang on average. Other guys who suffer a bit of a dip, Joel Embiid, Victor Oladipo, Klay Thompson rises up pretty significantly. Bud Hield becomes maybe a top 35, 40 type of a player because of that 3-point percentage. Gaz Harris. Nice, Gary! big jump from him there as well in that in that sort of a 3-point percentage category. But of course, you can check all this out over on Basketball Monster. Now, guys, I need to tell you that Locked On NFL is becoming everyone's favorite daily national NFL podcast. On Monday, it's the local experts on the biggest stories of the week. Tuesday, former NFL quarterback Sage Rosenfels joins Matt Williamson. And on Wednesday, it's Mike Renner of Pro Football Focus. Thursday, it's the great Mike Sando of ESPN. And Friday, you get Matt Williamson's pick. So make sure you are checking out Locked On NFL for all your NFL information. All right, let's go to the next question. Tons of questions coming in from you guys. This is awesome. JaVale McGee, I'm assuming that's not the real JaVale, but if it is, shout out to you. Who should I pick in the 4th round of my head-to-head points draft? I have the 4th pick, and our point system is based on stat averages, so player rankings make more sense. I don't actually understand what that means. What do you mean stat averages, so player rankings make more sense? And in the 4th round, I've got literally no idea. It really is going to depend 100% on which sort of players go. So I don't understand what you mean. If you can elaborate what you mean by stat averages, so player rankings make more sense, I'd like to know what that means. Jack Crawford, what do you think are the best 1 or 2 categories to punt in a 12-team head-to-head 9-cat league? I'll talk about this more on tomorrow's show, but it really just depends on what player you get in the first round. I could say that punting assists is great, but if you've got Russell Westbrook, then it's not great. So it really just depends on which player you've got. Jason Walsh, is Colin Sexton starting over George Hill this year? If he starts over George Hill to start this season, I would be very, very surprised. I don't think Sexton is very good. You've heard me say that plenty of times. And I don't think he's ever going to become very good. I think George Hill is solid. He's injury prone. He's old, yes. But I do not think that he will start the year starting over... Sexton will not start over George Hill to begin this season. Seb is watching from Long Beach, California. Never been to Long Beach, Seb, but... hope it sounds nice. Maybe I'll go there next year when I'm over in America. Kenny says thank you. I say thank you to you too, Kenny. Cano wins. Do you see Spencer Dinwiddie and D'Angelo Russell sharing the court much this season? I think they will share it, but I don't know about much because there's a lot of players in that backcourt in Brooklyn. Karis LeVert is apparently wowing everybody, and I think Karis LeVert is very, very good. I think he's maybe the 2nd or 3rd best player on that team. So you've got Karis LeVert, you've got D'Angelo Russell, there's Spencer Dinwiddie, there's Shabazz Napier, there's the blue swimmer Alan Crabb, there's Jumpin' Joe Harris, and these are some of those guys. Crabb and Harris can play at the 3, as can LeVert, but there are a ton of guys there in that backcourt. Now I get the feeling that Napier's not even going to be an every night part of the rotation. You're going to have Crabb and Russell starting, with LeVert and Dinwiddie off the bench, but it is going to be hard for Russell and Dinwiddie to be sharing the court for tons and tons of time. And I think that Dinwiddie actually does get traded this season from Brooklyn. Jason Walsh, will Brogdon start as well? I believe that Brogo will start. I haven't had anything confirmed on that. He'll get around those 29 to 30 minutes per night, and I think he's a low upside fantasy guy that probably someone that I won't be looking at. Jahan Zeb Ali, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm definitely not going to pronounce the next name correctly. Best players to target with Harden in a 12-team head-to-head 9-cat league. Well, with Harden, your field goal percentage is probably in a hole already. So I really like Kevin Love there. Get those rebounding numbers up. You're probably going to be punting blocks and field goal percentage. I wouldn't, Harden's free throw percentage is pretty strong. I wouldn't be looking at, say, an Andre Drummond or a Rudy Gobert. I don't want to waste that category from Jim. I'd be looking at... But what you can do, and what I've done with Harden in the past, is get Harden, get Devin Booker in the 2nd round, and then that gives you such a big free throw buffer that you can grab Gobert in that round 3. So I think that's not a bad option to do there with Harden. This name, I cannot pronounce that because it is in Russian maybe, so I apologize to you. Who would you choose for fantasy, Dame or CP3? It's easily Damian Lillard, not even remotely close. 100 times out of 100, I would take Damian Lillard. Seb, when's the best time for playoffs to start and end in fantasy basketball? I'm a league manager and was wondering this. Okay, the best time for the playoffs to start... Oh, sorry. Well, let's go work backwards. When's the best time for the playoffs to end? It is at latest the last Sunday in March. Now, this year that falls as the 31st. Next year it's going to be like the 24th or something. The last Sunday in March is the default date I use. If you want to take it a week earlier and make it the 24th of March, that's fine. And then it all comes down to how many teams have you got in your league? How many weeks do you want the playoffs to go for? Do you want 2-week matchups? So you've got 4 teams or 6 teams? But aim to finish it on that last Sunday of March and then work backwards as to when they start from there. Adrian Boloki, you were in that draft I did yesterday, Adrian. Hey, Josh, I have Joshy Richardson in a lot of leagues. How do you think a hypothetical trade from Miami to Minnesota affects him? Well, his minutes will go up if he goes to Minnesota. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, that probably increases his value because he will play more minutes. Now, will he get more touches? It doesn't really matter. He's not a high usage dependent player, but he probably would get a few more touches in a Thibodeau system. So I think it would probably benefit him in that sort of a scenario. Mason Boyce, hey Josh, I'm in a league which draft pick trading has allowed him in an 8-team league, so I'm thinking of trading for multiple first round picks. Okay, I don't really see the question. Jonathan Wright, do you have any general advice for selecting keepers? For example, I have to choose 2 keepers from Jokic, Mitchell, Paul, Oladipo, and Drummond, and I'm completely lost. Well, Jokic, it's a no-brainer. That is as straightforward as it gets. If it's only 2 keepers, and there's so many things that come down with keeper leagues, and when we're talking about, do you have a penalty as for what round they were drafted? Because if you got Mitchell in round 13, then taking him and losing only your 13th round pick versus, say, Chris Paul, who you'd lose a second round pick, well, it's an absolute no-brainer. I'd take Mitchell over Paul in any situation, but I'm just trying to give an example from those names that you use there. So, if it's only 2 keepers and there's no round penalty, I just would look for the 2 best guys, which is Jokic and Oladipo in this situation. And that's the way that I would approach it. But it is going to come down to, do you have penalties? Are there ramifications for which guy that you pick? And in some cases, say you picked Oladipo in the 9th round last season, you got Mitchell in the 13th round, and you lose those rounds. Well, I'd consider keeping Oladipo and Mitchell. Even though Jokic is the best player there, you could throw him back out there, but then you still have your first round pick to take, and maybe you get Jokic back because every other person in your league has kept their first round player. So you're the only player with a first round pick. And you can just take Jokic back with that round 1 pick. Plus, you've got value on Oladipo and Mitchell. So it really does depend in that situation. Jahan Zeb Ali, who do you think will have a better season alongside Kemba, Malik Monk, or Miles Bridges? Malik Monk, not really close to me in that opinion. Big Shot Bob, Josh, love all your hard work. Love you too, Big Shot Bob. JaVale McGee. Back again, JaVale. Thank you. Point system based on stat averages, meaning blocks and steals weigh more heavily because players average less of them, and points only average 0.5 points per point scored. So basically, you're looking, that's what the standard points category is: 3 points for a block, 3 points for a steal, 1 point for a point. So you're talking about something like that, which is that standard sort of DFS style scoring. K Cardi, what are you punting if you draft Embiid and Simmons? 3s? Probably 3s. Free throw percentage, maybe. Embiid's an okay free throw shooter, but he's not a great one. So there's probably 3s and free throw percentage there, I would say. Big Shot Bob, how confident do you feel about Joel Embiid this year? I'm in a league with double-doubles and his value is top 7 based on our league settings using your projections. Can I draft him ahead of LeBron? I feel okay about him injury-wise. I think that there is maybe a 20% chance that he actually plays more games than LeBron this season, with LeBron taking a little bit easier and resting this season. I'm pretty good with Embiid. Top 7 is maybe a little bit of a reach. I guess it depends who else you're talking about there, because there's Davis, there's Harden, there's Steph, there's KD, there's Jokic, there's Giannis. Who's the other guy there? Because I don't have LeBron as a top 7 guy this season anyway. So I think there might be someone else that we might be missing out on in that area. But of course, you're looking at the projections with double-doubles. I hate double-doubles as a category. You know that. I've talked about it a lot. But yeah, I don't have a problem with taking him in that spot, is my I guess, long-winded answer. Dwayne M, stay away from Conley. Dwayne. Oh, no! Actually, the opposite. I've got Conley in nearly every one of my drafts that I've done. I'm confident that he's healthy. I'm confident that he's going to play pretty decent minutes. I'm not worried about his performance from last year because he was hurt when he was doing it. If you're getting him in the 50s, which you can in a lot of situations, this is top 30 upside for Conley. No problem. Now, if you're going to take a bunch of guys with injury questions, if you're going to get Blake Griffin, if you're going to get Mike Conley, if you're going to get Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, you probably don't want to pair all those guys up together. But I've got no problem with Conley this season. Brandon Miller, Lillard or Westbrook in an 8-cat dynasty? That is a tough one. They're projected about the same for this season. I probably would take Westbrook personally, but it is pretty close, and it does come down to personal preference. Flip Sanchez. Hello, Josh. Head-to-head 14-teamer, 3rd pick. Who do you pick? Assuming Davis and Harden are picked 1 and 2. Karl Anthony Towns for me. Quanton Soup, what do you think about Mitchell Robinson? I think he's going to be an excellent fantasy player. I think he's got a chance to be impactful this season. And I think he's absolutely worth taking a look at with your last pick in a draft and just seeing how the Knicks use him from day one. Kanter's going to be the starter, But does Robinson come in and play 20 minutes a night? Because I shit you not, if Robinson plays 20 minutes a night from day one, he will be fantasy useful because he can come in and block 2 shots per game and have 8 rebounds and shoot 60% from the field in 20 minutes per game. And that's already useful. So I love him as a late round pick. It may not work out, but you just drop his ass if that's the case. Shinji, hey Josh, will we be doing any more auction mock drafts? And if so, is there any way I can participate as a viewer? Shinji, I don't think I'm going to be doing any more auction mock drafts, but you never know. It doesn't seem likely at this point. Seb, do you see any rookies blowing up like Donovan Mitchell did last year? No, I do not. That was his performance and Victor Oladipo's improvement last season were 2 historical type performances, so I wouldn't be expecting those things to happen again. Floyd Ong, do you think there is a chance Bill Hernangomez sees decent minutes? Yes, absolutely. He is an efficient offensive scorer with strong rebounding numbers. He's competing with Cody Zeller and Bismack Biyombo. So yes, I think he's a 20-minute per game guy pretty much at minimum, and that could jump to 26 minutes per night. Kempe, Fultz or Dunn in a 12-team Brodo category league. Sounds like Fultz has really worked on his shot, sure, but Dunn is a starter. He's locked in for 30-plus minutes. I would take Dunn over Fultz there. I really, really like Fultz, but if I'm looking at opportunity, I don't see Fultz as a 30-minute per game guy this season. I could be wrong, but I'd be looking at Dunn in that situation. Shinji, have you come up with any new nicknames for players for this upcoming season? I'm sure there's some that are going to come to me. We'll see. We'll unveil them as they happen. You already heard some of the rookie ones that I've put out there. Where would you take Dwayne Dedmon, Brian Taylor? Is that you, BT? Where would I take him? Late. I'm a little bit worried about this ankle fracture. There's a possibility of a trade. He's a late pick at this point, but can help if you need blocks and field goal percentage. Where are we at? I can't pronounce that name because I don't even know what language that is. I'm sorry, I apologize. Is that Hebrew? I apologize. Who would you take with the 6th pick in a 12-team head-to-head 9-cat league, assuming Harden, Cat, Davis, Giannis are off the board? Well, that means that KD and Curry are there, so it's one of those two. Someone else has gone because you said 6th pick and you've only given me 4 names off the board. So KD or Curry or Jokic, they're the 3 names there, and that's probably the order I would have them in. But if you are overly concerned with Curry, then put Jokic ahead of KD. Who are we at here? Ignorant Sniper, where is Jimmy Butler getting traded to? I wish I knew. I don't have any inside information. I'm going to put my money on Miami at this point, and I am going to put my money on an Eastern Conference team, but I'm not certain about that. Can the future MVP Kyle Kuzma improve with LeBron on the team? I don't think so. Maybe his efficiency goes up. His efficiency was already way above what anyone could have expected from Kuzma last season, and he doesn't rebound, assist, steal, or block. He has a poor free throw percentage, and I think he's going to find his usage a little bit harder to come by. So I would be doubtful that is the case for Kyle Kuzma this season. Guys, Locked On NBA, it never went away. It's still here for you every day. Locked On NBA is your national NBA podcast. Every Monday, get the local experts on the biggest stories. That's with me hosting it. And then stay with Locked On NBA all week long for daily 30-minute shows on everything going on in the NBA. Follow along for free at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and tell your smart speaker to play the podcast Locked On NBA. All right. Back to your questions. Does Marshawn Brooks have any fantasy appeal? From Jason Walshy Walsh. It's tough there in Memphis with that starting shooting guard position. Okay, so we've got Conley, Kyle Anderson, Jaren Jackson or JaMychal Green, and Marc Gasol. They're your 4 starters. And then it's that starting shooting guard. Is it Dylan Brooks? Is it Marshawn Brooks? Is it Wayne Selden? Is it Garrett Temple? Is it Aaron Harrison? And that is just an absolute platter of poo. But is there anyone there that stands out as good enough to get that role? Marshawn Brooks was electric to end last season. He shot 50% from 3. That's not going to continue. We're pretty clear about that. So there isn't a chance there, but there's just all these other guys that I just don't think that any of them are really going to be standard league players for this season. Matt Tejada. Hey Josh, 8-team category league, Jamal Murray or Gaz Harris? Last year someone asked me this on Twitter, and the first person to reply to that question was actually Jamal Murray. And he said, why not both? I said, fair point. I'd probably have Jamal over Gaz this season, but they're really, really bloody close. Quanton Soup, would you prioritize Dunn or Tyreek? I would take Dunn. Kano wins. Will Malik Monk overtake Jez Lamb as the starting shooting guard? I worry about the defensive combination of Monk and Kemba. So I think Lamb is going to start over Monk in that position. Jonathan Wright, what is the best food to eat while watching basketball? Give me more of these questions, Jono. What is the best food to eat while watching basketball? Well, basketball's a different scenario here for me because I'm watching it during the middle of the day. and it's not at night time. So what do I like eating? I don't know. It's a good question. I think you want to eat chips. I enjoy eating chips while I'm watching the games, but I'm also working at the same time. So let's go with pizza and chips. Would be my bet. Floyd Ong had a great auction draft. Your auction draft podcast helped a lot. Thanks, Floydo. Bill Hernan-Gomez or Mitchell Robinson, 9-cat roto. Let's just take that flyer on Robbo and see how it goes at the end of a draft. And again, on a roto, you can just sit his ass on the bench and see what happens. Kempy, where does Johnny Collins finish among centers in roto category leagues? He will be a top 40 player, probably. Now, I don't ever look at players and rank them based on where they're centers, but he's probably a top 6 or 7 center, I would guess, by the end of the season. Jerry West, shout out to you, Logo. How worried are you about Westbrook? 4 procedures on the same knee, scary. That's true. Last one was 5 years ago, though. Would you take Jokic or Embiid ahead of him? I would take Jokic ahead of him every day of the week. Embiid is a tough one. It's a possibility, and I am a little bit worried about Russ. I'm not worried about the fact that he's not going to come back, because we know he comes back pretty quickly. But the last time he had this preseason knee problem, he came back, he rushed it, and then in December he missed like 25 games because that same knee flared up. So that's my worry there with Westbrook. So I would consider it with Embiid, and I would do it with Jokic, no doubt. Guys, questions coming in all over the place here. Would you rather have Lonzo Ball or D'Angelo Russell this season? BT, I would take Russell personally. Baloki, would you trade Az Gordon for the Baptist John Collins in a dynasty league? I think that I would, yes. Here's James Harris. I drafted both Davis and Holiday in a slow draft points league. Didn't reset my queue. Would you try to move Drew early because of their playoff schedule, or wait until later in the season? Well, I think if you can wait until later in the season, that's probably the best way to go. Get that value out of him now, then move on in January. I think that would be ideal. Bugsy Mogs, Eagles or Pies? Who do I want to win, or who do I think is going to win? Let's go with Collingwood, because, I don't actually give a shit who wins at this point. If my team's out, I do not care. But I know more people who are Collingwood supporters as opposed from West Coast supporters. So I'm going to take Collingwood there. Mark Nakpil, who do you pair with Jokic in the next 2 rounds of 12-team 9-cat roto? Well, he's got most things covered, but you probably need a shot blocker there at some point. His blocks are okay, but they're not fantastic. So I'd be looking at someone like a Marcus Sol or LaMarcus Aldridge. If somehow you can get Joel Embiid to fall to you, these are what you need. Now, he gets assists covered pretty nicely there early on, but you need shot blocking in one of those 2 rounds. MVP, fake name. Who would you take first, Chrissy Dunn or Jeff Teague?
My name is Jeff.
It depends a little bit on my team. I don't even know where they're projected on my numbers at the moment. Let's have a quick look. I think we've got I've got Teague ahead of Dunn. So let's stick with that. And again, the possibility of Butler leaving probably leans a little bit more towards Tego there as well. Shinji, how do you feel about cheese on hot dogs? Yeah, love it. Get it in there. I'm all about cheese, onions, pickles, bacon. Throw whatever you want on a hot dog. Isaac, is there a specific Z score or Z score that you look to achieve with the Cats that you're not punting? After drafting, I look at my teams projected to make the playoffs and try to build my team to beat. Yeah, that's a good idea. I agree with what you're doing there. If you get a Z score of 2 in those categories, you're going to beat the majority of teams. Now, it's not going to be possible to have Z scores of 2 in, say, 7 or 8 categories. If you get a 4, you're almost unbeatable. Not necessarily 100% unbeatable. But yeah, looking at 2. Jez West. I read that Jonathan Isaac is projected to start. How would you change his projection if he does get the starting nod? Well, I've got him at about 28 minutes per night at the moment. Over the last week or so, I've been bumping that up a little bit. I do think also he is going to start. He's a clear top 100 guy at the moment, I think, and he's got the potential to push to a top 60 guy with those elite steals and blocks. And if the offense comes around, which it looks like it is starting to, I think he's going to be a monster this season. Jerry West, is there a way to see what changes are made in the projections before the date, besides the dates that are up there? I know Ken's working on doing something like that, but at the moment there isn't. Chandan Singh, Shaq Harrison or Monty Morris, head-to-head categories. It's not even close to me. Shaq Harrison is probably going to be the starting point guard for the Phoenix Suns. Monty Morris is going to be picking fluff out of his ears on the bench for the majority of time in Denver. Devin Muhammad, at what pick would you take Cousins? Only after I've got all my active spots done and I'm picking for my bench. So probably, outside the 12-team league, outside the top 110, 115 sort of a zone. JaVale McGee, Kevin Love or Paul George? Paul George. James C, could Kevin Love be top 20 this season? Yes, I believe he will be. Nico Hoffman, what do you think about Lonzo this season? I think that Lonzo is underrated by people. I think he's got top 30 potential. It's all going to come down to if he plays 30 minutes or 34 minutes per night. I do believe his percentages will go up this season as well. Will Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma ever be All-Stars? I'm going to say no on Kuzma. I feel pretty confident about saying no on Kuzma. Ingram, I'd say probably not as well. Tim Colville, Morrison or Turnbull? That's just, could you get a shitter selection of blokes there? Well, one thing I'll say, at least it's not Dutton. But yeah, probably Turnbull. I don't know. Morrison is a real creep. They both are. I don't know. Australian politics is an absolute shit show. And I know you guys in America are going, have you seen what's going on here? But our politics is low-key bad as well. Jason Rodriguez, Kawhi Leonard or Victor Oladipo? Kawhi, not close to me. What is the difference in projections when someone is 101 versus someone who is 0.93? How do we prevent ourselves from getting caught up in the small differences? Well, being aware of it is the number one thing. And that is important to note that these things can change pretty quickly. Now, that's a decent enough change in numbers that it is something to pay attention to. But when someone's got a difference in their overall value of 0.5 or something even 0.05, like it changes by 2% field goals, 0.2 steals, and that changes that number. So don't get too caught up in there. In the past couple of months, Shinji says, have you got any more tweets from angry Derrick Rose fans or fans of that nature? No, because I'm trying not to engage in that shit as much anymore because it was just really doing my head in. So no, but I'm sure they're going to come at some point. Brian Taylor, Lonnie Walker or Kevin Huerter? Give me Huerter. Look, I'm pretty big on Huerter. I'm not that big on Walker. I think he's going to be I think he could be Andrew Wiggins, but worse, if that gives you any idea of what I think his statistical profile is going to be. Where else are we here? Mason Boyce. What category should I punt if I have Kevin Love, Jim Harden, and Rudy Gobert? You're probably looking, okay, you got the really good threes from Harden and Love, strong rebounds from Gobert and Love. Your block numbers are there. Your field goal percentage, Gobert's got a strong field goal percentage, but the other two don't. The other two have strong free throw percentage, but Gobert doesn't. You're probably looking at steals as a strong punt there. I would say that, and of course turnovers, which is an auto punt. AJ Ong, should I take Delon Wright over Jaren Grant? I would take Jaren Grant because he's got a chance to start. Delon doesn't. ESPN thinks Tyler Ulis will average 1.8 blocks per game. Seb, you're wrong. They think he's going to average 1.6 blocks per game and 6 rebounds and 28 minutes per night, despite the fact that he just signed a training camp deal with the Warriors. So that is obviously horrendous. Kempy, can you recommend a good Fantrax draft tutorial video? Well, I don't know about that, but Kempy, the mock draft head-to-head I'm doing later in the week is going to be on Fantrax, so you can see some of that stuff there. But you can hit me up on Twitter if you want more questions answered about Fantrax. Isaac, why aren't meat pies more popular in the States? I don't know. They're okay. I don't love a meat pie. They're all right, but I don't look at it and go, it's a travesty. Why aren't people loving meat pies? I think they're fine. They're not that great. JaVale McGee, where should Capella get drafted? Top 40, I think he's probably right. Not a stan. What are your thoughts on Joshy Jackson? I didn't see him in the forward rankings. That's because I don't think he's very good. I think his minutes are going to be restricted. Trevor Ariza, TJ Warren, McCall Bridges, Josh Jackson. I think there's a legitimate chance that Jackson is the worst out of all those four guys. His shot selection is horrendous. Poor field goal percentage. Poor free throw percentage. Good numbers last year when Devin Booker and TJ Warren were out. With everyone healthy, he's not going to get that usage. I don't see it for him. He's not for me. Kevin Lim, at what point do you see Wendell Carter Jr. starting? And if he does, what's his ceiling? His ceiling is top 70, maybe higher. I thought maybe we're talking about when Robin Lopez gets traded, maybe start of January. But at this point, the Bulls are coming out and saying, along with all the other misguided shit they're saying in their media day stuff, is that it's an open competition for that starting center spot. So draft Wendell Carter Jr. and see what happens. Because if he starts, he's bang on top 100 guy this season, pretty comfortable. Let's have a look. Bugsy Moog says Butler is looking like a 5-star shit bloke. Yeah, he is a shit bloke. I've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years. He is a shit bloke. Pretty clear on that. Where else are we at? Alan Cho, Jonas, that was terrible. Jonas Valanciunas or Enes Kanter? Probably take Kanter there. Which top 30 player has the highest chance to regress? I like that question. That is a strong question. So let's have a look at that. Actually, just back to that Jeff Teague, Chris Dunn question from earlier. I was talking about where they're ranked, and I had my 3-point percentages as a category from an earlier question. So my answer there was incorrect. They're both ranked basically identically next to each other. So do you want steals? Dunn will help you there. If you want threes, then Teague's going to be the guy. So it does come down to it. So I apologize for that earlier answer. So which top 30 player has the biggest chance to regress? I think Victor Oladipo is a real chance. I know everyone's talking him up as, he looks even better than ever, but so much of his value came from out-of-control blocks and steals numbers, and there's such low volume that even like a 0.2, 0.3 drop per game in those categories can really impact your ranking. So I think that's a possibility for Vic. There's some regression there. Who else do we look at as a top? I think Drew Holiday, if his field goal percentage drops, then his value is going to drop as well. So they're probably two of those guys that I look at who are projected as top 30 players who have the biggest chances to regress in that sort of a situation. Shinji, if you had to pick a restaurant to recommend in Melbourne to go to, where would it be? I went to Lucy Lou on the weekend. That was really, really nice. I recommend that a lot. I like going to Tetsujin, Japanese barbecue. That's a pretty strong restaurant. Went to Tonka not that long ago, Indian place in Flinders Lane. Super Normal was really good. Nobu's pretty strong. These are all places I've gone to probably the last 6 months or so. So quite a number of restaurants that I've been to. Patrick Ravello, how much stock do you place on drafting players on tanking teams who might sit players throughout the season to improve their draft position? Zero. I don't really pay attention to it. The change in lottery weighting is going to really reduce that. Flat odds for the top few teams, reduced percentages for those, and lottery for the top 4 now. I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern really at all for this season. Looks like my internet's gone out, but I'm still recording for you guys, and still some questions to get to. I'll be back in a second. Brian Taylor, BT, you're killing it today. Will Kyle Anderson this season have similar stats to Tyreek Evans last season? Absolutely 100% not. He is not a scorer. He is not a high usage player. He is a guy that will get steals, assists,